Coming up on this
And
episode.
I also think that there's an expectation of the system that you're going to get fixed in 30 days, in 60
Yeah.
days, in 90 days. And I'm still peeling onion layers after 18 years.
Welcome to What the Healthcare Podcast, where we take a deeper look at our healthcare system, what's working, what's broken, and have healthy discussions about what we might be able to address in order to bring positive change to our lives and set up a better system for our kids and generations to come. Today, we are taking a look at caring for our children, not just from a healthcare doctor-nurse perspective, but their overall well-being. Physical, mental, emotional. We are hearing so many horrific stories of children falling through the cracks, and overdose rates are spiking after close to 3 decades of decline. Overdose ranked a very close second to firearm fatalities in the United States between 2019 and 2021. Dying from overdosing, as horrible as it is, those who live a life struggling with addictions are of equal concern. Here to talk to us today about helping our kids navigate the pitfalls of youth is Eddie Fischer. Eddie has started a foundation, How U Doin, in Texas, with a goal of assisting the youth of his community on a healthier path. Welcome, Eddie.
Thank you so much. How you doing?
How you doing? I love that name. How you
Yes.
doing? That is perfect. It encompasses you. I can see, so that's wonderful. So tell us, Eddie, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this mission.
Emily, I'm so grateful and enthusiastic to be with you. Thank you for this great opportunity.
Of course.
I was born, I'm a Jersey kid through and through. Grew up in central New Jersey. I always say Bon Jovi town. We went to the same high school.
Awesome.
Right. And, I grew up in that era of, hardworking people, but, drinking was a thread of the culture. Every event, everything was, revolved around drinking. I really did not like what it did to people in my life and witnessed some things that, has taken some time to unwind and to heal from, which I have celebrating. I'll be celebrating 19 years clean and sober in April.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a grateful gift.
Yes.
But, the irony of is I became what I hated the most. And through things kind of stacked, right? Seeing the example of it, not liking it, being around it, then romanticizing it, trying it, starting at the age of 13, and really becoming what I hated the most. So it kind of started with me, at 13, and then as the years went by, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until it really dominated my life. But it's interesting in my teenage years, between drinking and trauma and certain situations, I couldn't regulate emotionally. And what I didn't realize was when I drank and something happened and I would snap, it was a lot of trauma coming out. It was a lot of behaviors that I had mirrored and learned. And that's how it would flare out of me. So it got really messy for a very, very long time. But my teenage years, I was a very good baseball player, and drinking, to really get, I really wanted the approval of my father and grandfathers. I wanted to be a part of the boys club. I was always a mama's boy. And I felt my way into the club. And then I exceeded all of them and then some. So, this was kind of a thread and an issue that showed up in my life in my teens. And I really probably could have used help in my teenage years. Um, I needed tools, but now you're talking, the 80s, early 80s. That really wasn't a big discussion back then. Trauma wasn't even a discussion, let alone sending a teenager to a treatment center or maybe a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
That really wasn't the thing. Now, I will tell you, all these years later, I don't know, some of that built a lot of resilience and grit and courage to give me the strength to overcome, ask for help. So it's kind of an interesting thing because I think there's so much help today.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you never want to say too much help, but there are a lot of uh, cooks in out there,
That's
right,
right.
that are offering all sorts of different things. So I got sober at 35. Well, I got sober at 36 years old. I ended up at the Betty Ford Center 20 years ago this May. I learned a lot. It prepared me for what I would need to do in my life on a daily basis. I had a relapse after treatment and really drove myself into the ground in 8.5 months and surrendered. I was just talking about this episode. April 12th, 2006, I was staring at myself in the mirror. I've been up for 4 days.
Wow.
And I was looking at a shell of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And all I heard, Emily, was this must all end. And it was a culmination of, people have these experiences where you could see your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that moment of clarity. I got like this moment of clarity and those words. And I slammed my hand on the back of the toilet and flushed my drugs down the drain.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's like the bathroom door opened, and I got that moment of clarity, Emily, and I took it.
You were ready.
I I was ready, but I felt like this was it. If I didn't take this moment of clarity, if I didn't walk out of that bathroom, made a beeline to my bar, and I started pouring all the booze down the drain and throwing everything in the garbage.
Wow.
Um, I don't know. I felt like I was going to die. If I went any deeper down, I was going to die. And I don't want to die from this. The thing that I hated the most that I became, I did not want to die from it. But we all were going to die, but I want to do something with my life that, when it is my time, I could say, well, that's, I
Mm-hmm.
gave it everything I had for all the right reasons. So the next day I went to a 12-step meeting, and I got surrounded by a wonderful community and went on a journey, um, which then led me, I spent 18 years in Scottsdale. It's where I met my beautiful wife, and she has walked through this whole thing with me. I don't know what's a bigger miracle, still being married 19 years or being sober almost 19 years. So a lot of
Two
work.
huge accomplishments.
Oh my goodness. But you know, that kind of led me to this path of being of service and sharing a message. I was always involved in service work. Some years later, about 6 years later, um, I felt something missing in my life, and for me, it was faith, rediscovering like a relationship, not religion. It was I so I went on that journey, and it ended up starting this someone asking for help at the church that I was going to, which led to a 5-year mission helping. mostly young adults, because that's when the opioid crisis had hit. And spent 5 years doing crisis interventions on the streets, going into hotels, getting kids out, taking them to detox, getting them to treatment, working with the families. We started bringing kids into our own home. Um, we had just
Was
an,
that in Arizona, Eddie?
yeah, that was in Arizona.
Okay.
And so I learned a lot. And I also had an opportunity to look at myself in the mirror again and say that I'm only one bad decision away from someone coming to get me.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're of service, you forget about your druthers. And service over self is a beautiful mantra
Yes.
to help others. So I learned a tremendous amount. Then an opportunity arose 7 years ago to come out to Texas to work with teenagers. And gosh, it was so awesome, because it's such a pivotal time in your life. It could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be able to authentically show up for that age group, because if there's anybody who can smell an unauthentic person, it's a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
So just it, I'll never forget these beautiful moments of working with teenagers and engaging the entire community to pour into to the teenagers. And I spent 3 years doing that. And then I did work for a men's only facility for another 2 years.
Okay.
So, you know, talking about healthcare and treatment, and, we can go down the rabbit hole and talk about some stuff like that. But I got laid off in March of 23.
Okay.
This concept had been on my heart for a very long time as I went all over the country and met with different and saw the gaps in the system for teenagers, before, during, and after the problem, all
Mm-hmm.
three legs of it. Um, so as I started walking 5 miles a day and kind of getting back a lot of the things that I felt like I gave away working in the industry, I lost 30 pounds and really started taking care of myself again. And I said, it's time for a nonprofit. What are you going to name this nonprofit? Because you're going to do this for teenagers in your community and beyond. And I thought, how you doing? I mean, how you doing has
How you
always
doing?
been such an important, and it's meant a lot to me. It's not just because I really do, I care how you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it fits the Jersey, you know.
I love
I,
it.
I left Jersey, but Jersey never left me, right? So it never will. But, and that's the thing, right? It's the stories, it's the characters of where we come from and how we're shaped. And although I had a lot of problems and a lot of things, I had a lot of love and a lot of great things that happened. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of recovery. Like, trauma isn't my issue, but healing from it is. It's my
Mm-hmm.
responsibility.
Yes.
So a lot of things were my responsibility. And then I, also had a part to accept that I
Mm-hmm.
played in a lot of things. And so one thing after another happened, and I was referred to a nonprofit attorney. One of our board members made a beautiful contribution to get us started.
Oh.
And here we go. And, by the time it takes to get the nonprofit, the 501c3, which we did get,
Mm-hmm.
and we just crossed the $80,000 threshold in the bank.
Wonderful.
And so a clubhouse That's what it is. It's a clubhouse for teenagers that are having challenges with connection, mental health, and substance misuse. And the clubhouse will be open 6 days a week. It'll be open. The projection is the end of the third quarter, 2025. 5,000 square foot.
Wow.
With a big pizza oven that's going to be featured in it. Because Uncle Eddie's going to be slinging pies.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So, I just didn't want to do a lot of these places, it's a ping pong table and a lousy couch.
Yep.
We're going to have the pizza oven. We're going to do bread baking. We're going to have a podcast studio. The girls that I've been interviewing for high school, they requested a quiet room.
Oh.
The boys requested a rage room. Right? Which I could completely understand.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? One of the most awesome asks, Emily, that I got from this was, Eddie, would you stay open till midnight on Fridays and Saturday nights as an alternative to us going to a party instead? I said, listen, I'll be there making pizzas. I'm going to be very involved in this, Emily. This isn't something that, I'm going to put together and then I'm going to be, I feel like I'm at the age, I'll be 56 in May, maybe 3.5 to quarter 4 for me, 15 years till I'm 70. And then I'm going to give it away to the next group of leaders to make it better, bigger, and stronger, and leave that legacy for teenagers, because we need an anchor in the community.
Yeah.
To when something goes wrong in the beginning, go to the clubhouse. I like the word clubhouse because to me, come as you are, have fun. There's no stigma to it.
Well, I think too, I always like to point out with people who use, we don't use drugs and alcohol and then our lives become unmanageable. Our lives are unmanageable. That's why we use. And kids are so susceptible to it because they don't know how to regulate their emotions. They don't have control over their lives yet. And so it is such a pivotal time, that you could go one way or the other. And so community and giving them life skills, is the impact that you're going to have on this community and the lives of the people in it. I'm just so excited for you. Like I would love to see something like this in every, and you're right. Like I go back to the community center, where I'm from. I'm from a small little town in upstate New York, and that's exactly what it was. It was just a little, 2 rooms with a ping pong table and a couple arcade games. And, it was a place for kids to go, but none of them really wanted to. So you're creating a space that's truly, they're going to want to be there.
Yes.
So that's huge. That's awesome. I love it.
The first pillar of the foundation is fun. Because if you're not having fun, you're not coming back.
That's right.
If it's not fun, you're not coming back. So it's fun, connection, discovery, and direction. So I really do feel that if you're having fun, you're going to connect with something or someone, whether you're introverted or extroverted, right? Because every person, communicates a little bit different. But if you do have fun, you're going to connect. And then it's this discovery mode, Emily, that I'm so excited about, because with the podcast studio, we'll have groups of teams, to develop their own podcast and do that, right? Maybe inspire the next great pizza maker, a sourdough bread maker, right? And if a kid says, I want to be, do I want to go to college? Do I want to go to trade school? Do I want to become a YouTube sensation? Do I want to go into the military? Whatever that's going to be, we are going to incubate and foster and pour into that kid and bring all the resources in to develop that discovery, that passion. Or I always like this, when I stopped playing baseball, my life I felt was over.
Mm.
Now, if someone would have swept in and said, listen, you love the game, why don't you be a broadcaster or a journalist? So I want to take those things in my life and bring it and say, okay, so this didn't work out, but what's the solution? What are other solutions? What are other opportunities that you could have in your passion to discover, but maybe it's just a little bit of a different lane, and
Mm-hmm.
keep bringing that. And then if one thing I would love is if then you see a young person, teenager say, you know what, I really didn't realize how hard that was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Let's go on to the next thing. And I really feel that the outcomes for the nonprofit are going to be in the direction, you know, because we're going to be 100% donor sponsored. If a young person, teenager comes in at 13, they could stay. It's not like insurance is going to run out or,
Mm-hmm.
so they could stay with us 4 years. And if, all of a sudden they go into the military or a great trade school or use our studio for good content creation, you just never know what's going to happen in that clubhouse. So, um,
You're
I,
giving them options.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's what kids need. Kids
Yep.
need options. They need to have fun. There needs to be a hook. And every kid has told me, Eddie will show up for pizza.
Oh, good pizza too.
Good pizza too. Yes, it's not going to be store bought, right?
Yes.
So
So, what's the feedback from your community that you're getting thus far?
there's a lot of excitement.
I
I
bet.
mean, a lot of intrigue and excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everybody nods their head yes. When, I show up at Rotary Club or I talk to somebody, now I'm getting involved in the chamber, which kind of serves, because we could serve about 7 communities from North Lake,
Oh, wow.
Texas. It'd be pretty convenient for that,
Mm-hmm.
which is wonderful. Everybody's like, this is wonderful, right? So um, we are definitely moving in the right direction. There's a few things too, is that law enforcement needs help, parents need help, grandparents need help. Um, and the feedback is really showing in, because I do work with a lot of teenagers and families now. When something goes wrong with a teenager, nobody knows what to do.
Yeah.
They really don't.
No, they
So the
don't.
anchor in the community. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do obviously a full assessment too. If someone needs a higher level of care, we'll be able to use the community partners around the country, really, because I know all the places. And the great thing is that when a teenager gets out of treatment, and this is showing up right now, teenagers are going to come home. Emily, there's nothing for them to do, especially with substance abuse.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a safe place where kids can come and be themselves and not have to be like, oh, that's the kid there. That's like that still happens. Because that's why we're going to have parent date nights while their kids are in treatment, because it's very isolating for parents when they send a teenager. They usually get kicked out of a friend group,
Mm-hmm.
or you can't play with, Joey because of this or that. So um, it shows up every day. And there's almost only so much money you can spend in this. There's only so much therapy you can do. And teenagers, and then there's the clinical kind of stuff that kids are like, this isn't any fun, but it checks a box, keeps them busy for an hour or two. But, we're aiming for that end all be all things for teenagers in the
Something
community.
different than what the system currently has to offer,
Yes.
by the sounds. And
Yes.
looking at the system that we have now, like the healthcare system, as far as mental health, addiction treatment, also, even talking like community, like where do you think the biggest issues are in, like, why we know something like this is needed, right? Every community could benefit from something like this.
Yes.
What is the biggest why and how are we failing these kids, like, up until now? You know what I mean? Like, what's the biggest yeah, where do we go wrong? Where did we go wrong?
The glorification of marijuana, the legalization of marijuana. And I understand medicinal. I mean, there are people that, listen, pharmaceutical is, you know, just as bad
Yeah.
sometimes, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we
Yeah.
can get into that. We can get into, listen, I understand that there are certain needs for everything. However, the strength of everything has gone to epic proportions.
Yeah.
I smoked 4% THC level. It is now 70% or higher.
Oh my gosh.
The strains, kids aren't really rolling joints anymore, right?
No.
They are getting the oil, and then it's put in the vapes, it's dabs, it's wax. It's so concentrated and so strong, and the amount and what's going on in the high school bathrooms, um, it's. I'm even having a hard time grasping. And we didn't. I didn't drink. I drank after school. I didn't drink in. I was, so it's gone way overboard. And I think still there's a lot of parents. There's a lot of older parents today too, right? And I think that they also were like, "That's just weed." And that was kind of like in my generation, just beer.
Yeah.
Just drink beer. Don't touch this, don't touch that. But beer was always my gateway because it was just beer. So I started with beer and then went off to the races. So the where we're failing our kids is what we're allowing and what we're signing off on.
And
And
being uninformed, because to your point, the strength of things, things are different. And, like, I even find myself saying, well, yeah, it's different now. It used to be, and I hate to say this because I don't want it to sound like it's a glorification, but it is different than when I was a teenager and would go out to a party and smoke a joint, whatever. And now, to your point, it's like they're going out and they're doing dabs or and you don't even know what's in it anymore.
no,
But I myself am guilty of not staying informed. So I guess being in, not staying informed about what exactly is happening is probably largely part of the issue.
and
And I don't know how we, what tools do we have and what keeps us best informed.
well, you throw in fentanyl
Ugh.
now, and so what's happening with all of this is that you're not even getting, like, there's a lot of accidental deaths from this, but it's also like Russian roulette today. There could be no fun in thinking, but when you're young like this, right, you feel like you're invincible.
Yes.
So that you have that, and you have no frontal cortex development, right? I mean, so decision making skills are not really there. And now, like, they're putting felonies, like if you get caught with a vape or they're testing it, and if it's 70% or higher in some of the towns, they're charging with felonies.
Oh, wow.
So could you imagine coming out of the gate, and there are kids that are 15, they're just they're dropping, right? And then the emergency rooms are reporting all of these symptoms, psychosis from marijuana induced psychosis, vomiting, all these different things. They couldn't figure it out because everybody, I think, is kind of, well, it's weed. Like,
Right. Yeah.
kids testing positive for marijuana. Why? Well, it's the strains that are being developed. The strength of everything is epic. I think where we fail our kids. So I am, this is kind of interesting, and I would love your feedback. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I am a prevention person, a
Mm-hmm.
prevention platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up in the DARE era.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a nation, we spent $3 billion on that program.
Wow.
The cops would come, right?
Yep, I remember that.
And they would come and they would show you all this. But I think where we, fail is I, if I went to a high school to speak,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't come with the don't do drugs, don't, because when you say don't, nobody, it's all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
just say no. I am there to share that for the kiddo that's got a problem. I have a solution today at this clubhouse.
Okay.
Because a lot of speakers will come, right, and share
Mm-hmm.
a message, then they go. And the kids get inspired. Maybe some say, wow, I'm going to take that person's suggestion and not, but I'm there for the problem.
Okay.
I really feel like there needs to be someone for the problem.
I agree.
And that's what I prefer, that the intensity and showing up for the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I I enjoy that work more so than going, this is what I did, don't do it. Uh,
Well, and I think too, you probably secondary to that will be prevention for a lot of kids because you're giving them a place to go, um, aside from going and partying, right? I mean,
yes,
you're giving them a safe place to have fun because you can
yes,
have fun without doing drugs and drinking,
a ton of
you
it.
know?
Yes.
So that's great. And one thing too, I want to ask you, I mean, I think a lot of people think that it doesn't, like, it only happens in certain areas. Like the small town that I lived in upstate New York. I mean, it was less than 2,000 people. I think it was like 1,800 people. It was very small. It was a one school, K through 12, right? We didn't even have baseball some years. I mean, it was just there wasn't a lot for kids to do, and so it was a very prevalent problem there amongst kids, and it was always like, well, there's nothing else for them to do. But I don't think it's just happening in small towns. I think it's happening everywhere. And I think that's probably part of that, people just not being informed. Like, it's happening everywhere, right?
It doesn't discriminate,
Yeah.
and it doesn't care who you are, where you're from, what nationality, what race, what preference. It's an F5 tornado.
Yeah.
That'll wipe everything out.
It's a good way to put it.
It doesn't matter. You know, it affects everyone, and everybody needs an opportunity for a place to heal, to
Mm-hmm.
learn, to have fun, to see a different side of life, a different perspective on what's available. There's a big study going on right now. The biggest problem in the United States is a sober workforce. It's not
Oh.
jobs. It's a sober workforce. I mean, especially it got really ramped up during COVID
Mm-hmm.
because people working from home, you know,
Yes.
and the isolation. And hey, you don't have to drive. You don't have to get dressed. You could, work on Zoom. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's for a lot of people, that's okay, but there's a huge, huge problem. We, we have such an issue with that. And, Emily, teen suicide is, when I went to high school, not one person. Now, it's an option for kids.
Oh.
Kids think of it as an option, whether it's, ideation to active, um, you know, it's a silent killer too, because my experience is that most people that actually commit, um, you would never know,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it a lot. I had ideation, but I was saying it out of to get attention, and out of fear, and some mirroring of behaviors um, under the influence. But teen suicide is in the top three of cause of death for teenagers now.
Oh,
So it's
that's
on
so sad.
it is it's on the table, right? So we have to. I feel the responsibility from our generation. To be active in this and really present a solution, and
Mm-hmm.
have something like this in the community. We really do need it. Our teenagers need us today, and they need us more than ever.
So you think the isolation that was caused by COVID really upped the ante here, has increased these numbers of kids?
The things that kids have to worry about today weren't even a thought for me.
Mm.
School shootings,
Oh gosh.
uh, right? Uh, COVID. Uh, I didn't, am I, are we going to have another one? I mean, are we going to get canceled from having our junior prom, our senior prom, my last year of playing sports, academics, um, on top of kids being kids?
Yeah.
Like, I know there's a lot of narratives out there that, the kids, we're not nicer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, kids are
Yeah.
kids. Kids are kids. Like,
And we have to remember that the pressures that kids face, when you become an adult, you're like, oh, I worried about such stupid stuff. But when you're a kid, those pressures are very real.
astronomical, and everything is 24/7.
Yes.
So even for the news cycle, what's on TV? I We don't even have any sitcoms anymore where we can sit and laugh.
Right?
I mean, we watch reruns all the time, right? They're
Yeah.
not making anything that's lighter and fun.
And then
Um,
add in social media
oh my goodness,
to
right?
that.
So the bullying that goes on, that went on when I was, you went home and you were kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Now it's
You can't
like,
get away from it.
no. So there's just a lot of things that have escalated and compounded for teenagers, and and then on top of it all, right? I mean, kids are still drinking a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and the other piece too is that if a kid gets caught, if an athlete, right, gets caught, they're kicked off the team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you take away the one thing that maybe is holding that kid together, that one thing he loves,
Yeah.
and you're not even offering. So another goal of mine, because of my experience in being a high school athlete, but also drinking on the weekends and whatnot, is could we possibly have a collaboration where a kid does need help, but not excommunicate him from the community that he loves so much?
Mm-hmm.
You know, could he become part of the clubhouse? Could some of his friends that maybe aren't doing that come to the clubhouse and learn and all make pizza? Right? Like,
Yeah, because so we're not perpetuating the problem,
correct.
taking things away, and yeah, to your point, making it worse.
And I get it. Like, parents are like, but listen, the kids they all know who's who. They all know who's doing what. They're all doing it. Everybody's, in some way or another. So, bring things to the light. Don't keep them in the dark. And that's where, the healing and the understanding, and that's where, things will get better. But the way they're going right now, it's not that, not that way.
Yeah, and it's like, it's hard to pinpoint, I guess. It's not just a healthcare problem. It's not just a school problem. It's not just a family problem. Like, it's a big problem, like, globally.
Yes.
And I'm not. I like your focus on because there is, I think the majority of us do kind of fixate on prevention, but like it's gonna happen. I think prevention is still important, but focusing on a solution to the problem and not just the prevention is equally as important.
Yes, there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful people doing wonderful work to spread messages. There
Mm-hmm.
are, I back them to the hilt, but you know, um, there is more help and awareness than ever, and we're getting worse.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I
Like, how do we?
it's the truth. I
It
mean,
is.
and you know, I don't kind of buy like, you
Is that
know,
a lack to boots on the ground, Eddie? Do you think?
I, I think that the combination of things getting worse. I think that also too. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more coddling now too. Maybe there's just a little bit, a little bit more gentleness around certain things that need
Yeah,
to be confronted more. Um, I think that you know there's just it's just a very scary thing out there, right? It, it's really interesting, and then some of the systems want you to stay sick
oh yes.
because that's profitable,
Yep.
right? So we have that too, where uh, when I went to a therapist and 6 months later said, "Listen, I think you're good. You have communicated, you have talked through some things, we have worked on some things. Go." That's a good therapist,
Oh yeah, that is.
right? Like,
It's a
and
great
listen, I'm
therapist.
here. You gotta, but go. Like, you got the tools now. Now go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of things that are perpetuating to stay sick in the system.
Yeah.
I think that's part of a problem too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think that there's an expectation of the system that you're going to get fixed in 30 days and 60
Yeah.
days and 90 days. And I'm still peeling onion layers after 18 years, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you've got to be responsible for your own recovery. But it's a long journey of, it takes time. If I go back to my first year, Emily, of recovery, it wasn't about my trauma. It wasn't about, doing these modalities that are so, EMDR and brain spotting and all of this stuff. It was about, how do I stay sober today?
Yeah.
Like, my first year was all about abstinence. I couldn't get all that other stuff. So I think that there's an expectation. If I go to treatment for 30 days, or like if I send somebody to treatment for 30 days and they're going to come, it's not a car wash.
Right.
You don't come out all spiffy, all clean. You may come out a little more educated, a little more changed, but let's face it, the brain isn't even healed. I mean, it takes years,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how long, you've been using. Now, for teenagers, you know, they need a good environment to come back to,
Yeah, you
because
can't get healthy in the environment that made you sick.
no.
Right.
So that's another thing, right? Going back to the high school, that all of this kind of, you know, you want to fit in, you want to be accepted, right? You,
Mm-hmm.
you you find your tribe. It's really easy for us to sit here and say, well, just change your tribe.
Right.
Tell that to a 15, 16-year-old,
Yeah.
right? So there has to be something in the community to foster that change of tribe or learning.
Mm-hmm.
And, it needs to be forever. Like, it needs to be like, hey, your insurance is running out next week. Sorry, thank you. you know, managed care has completely changed how we get help, how how we want to get help,
Yep.
how we pay for help, right? I mean,
We're codependent on it.
we really are. I
Yeah.
mean, you really, I mean, when I went, it wasn't, insurance wasn't a factor. I had to pay out of pocket, but I got what I paid for, and I stayed and went.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but there are a lot of great places that do managed care, to help. I think if you're starting as a teenager, like it's so expensive, you know.
Yeah.
And it should be, because I mean, facilities that are run right, it's very, very expensive. The liability, hiring great people, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's expensive. So there needs to be a How You Doing Foundation in the community to say, hey, we're 100% donor sponsored. I am really going to ramp up. Like we corporate support and grant writing will be huge for us. That's
Could you possibly then, teach this model to um, to others so that, or take this globally,
yes,
so that this, because yeah, I think every community does need this, because otherwise, especially with kids, you're sending them. Even if they do get into the healthcare system, into detox, into treatment, if you're sending them right back to the same environment that they came from,
yes,
it's going to be real hard for them to not go back.
absolutely. And the parents need, for teenagers, the parents need maybe even more help than the kids.
Yeah,
They really do. And
I agree.
so, we're going to open that up, and, to the parents a lot, and there's a lot of great things that they can do in the community as well, besides that, to learn. And that's where I think, a little bit of my Jersey upbringing comes in, because I'm very blunt
Mm-hmm.
and straightforward with parents, because there's no time for, not that you're not coming at it from love
Yeah.
and empathy, but listen, you're going to need to do this stuff, you know?
Yep.
And so, yes, I've had this thing keeps coming to me, this guidance, right? The good old 11-step guidance. I always feel someone saying, like, I'm going to get a call from other mayors and say, Eddie, we like what's going on here. We'd like one in our
Yeah.
town. There's a piece of me that would love to open one in New Jersey and Arizona, and the three places that I've lived, that, between the three states, have all been so important to me
Mm-hmm.
and shaping, me to who I am today. And, my heart, I have a heart for all three states, very much. But,
Mm-hmm.
I will be open to the call. And I'd like to take this first clubhouse, and it's wonderful how it's working out, because it's across the street from my development. And I know it's going to be important, because a lot of time spent.
You're going to need to
So
be there.
I
Yeah.
don't need to be, commuting 2 hours a day
Yep.
on top of that. So, but I'd like to use that first one, hopefully, as a training center as well. Use that as the model.
Yes.
And then, as we grow, I do want to hire a program director, Emily, for this.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like, a strong master's level therapist, but we're not going to be um, taking insurance, so they won't have to make notes to get
Mm-hmm.
more days. They're not going to have to, have this kind of like restriction. Obviously they have their license,
Yeah.
right? So they have to abide. But the combination of having a little bit more like time to really do that good work. So I'd like to have 2 groups a week for girls, 2 groups a week for the boys, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna do a mashup, like on Saturday, a co-ed group, and pizza, and I'll be flying in a lot of people as guest speakers and guests, authors, um, podcasters, because we'll do a podcast with our guest
Mm-hmm.
and then speak to the kids and speak to the parents separately. I the pizza community that I'm involved with, they're already, I mean, they'll come in and, do a special on, their take, whether it's New York style, New Jersey style, from the tomato pie to the Detroit pie to the Chicago pie. Don't tell anybody in Jersey I said Chicago pie, but but it's so important to me that all these things in my life and where I've been and the people that I've met, to bring them all in,
Mm-hmm.
bring everybody in, and have this wonderful kind of Friday, Saturday, you know, guest, and it's going to be really exciting. I have some great people in store and in line. And the other thing too is it doesn't always have to be centered around addiction, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that's important. You know, could we have Gary V come in and talk about entrepreneurship and YouTube and algorithms and things that you need to do, right? With a
Yeah.
good positive message, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I'm going to ask everybody. I'm relentless when it comes to that. If we have to fundraise to bring some people in, but I really feel that once we get out and out, people start going, I'd like everybody wanted, from what I understand, all the stars wanted to be a guest on Entourage. So I'm hoping I can get everybody that wants to be
Yeah.
a guest at the How You Doing Clubhouse, right? I mean,
Aw.
the ultimate would be to be with Matthew LeBlanc,
Mm-hmm.
Joey Tribbiani from Friends, right? With
Mm-hmm.
our How You Doing, and say How You Doing. I mean, I guess that would be my
Epic.
epic, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, but
So, do you think this is kind of, I mean, obviously it's not just for, like you said, it's not just for addicts, but would you say that the pillars of this program are maybe likened to a 12-step program, but for kids?
there's an issue too with 12-step meetings for
Yeah.
adolescents, um, and they have to be peer led,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
fostering a peer led 12-step meeting would be phenomenal. Um, and I'll work with some of the 12-step programs throughout the country and get their feedback on what's best. But from what I've studied too, is that let the kids run their own meeting,
Yeah.
right? But there needs to be a safe place for that,
Yes.
right? Um, but it's interesting you asked me this question because I have a phenomenal brand ambassador, a senior at a local high school. She has done a video on our website. She's on our social media,
Mm-hmm.
and she's grown up, with some things, but she is not an addict. She doesn't use. She's an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Her perspective is incredible, and it brought this to me. Like, she wants to encourage. She would show up to the clubhouse to bring a friend that's struggling because she's
Oh.
so when that's the beauty about listening to the kids. I feel like a lot of this stuff gets invented or whatever, but no one like asks the customer.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Because I asked the kids, like, give me your top 5 influencers that you would want at the clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, sometimes they were like, Taylor Swift. I'm like, well, okay, Uncle Eddie's made some good pizza, but I don't know
Right.
if I can get Taylor Swift in a clubhouse. But listen, you know what? We'll put it out there. So,
Yeah.
but
You never know.
but the key is that there are kids, teenagers that want to come to this clubhouse to discover
Mm-hmm.
something, but also encourage people that are struggling, their
Yes.
classmates. And I thought that was a beautiful
Oh, that it is
It was
because
so,
there's so many, what do you do, especially as a kid? What do I do for my friend? What do I do? So, oh, yeah, very
you know,
cool.
so that's a whole nother, I would have never thought of that
Yeah.
unless I interviewed and asked questions and just sat back and listened. And I got educated.
Mm-hmm.
There's no better way to get educated than talk to the teenagers themselves
That's right.
and open it up, open the floor up, and we'll continue to do that,
I love that.
as we move forward. And I want, because anything in life, when we take ownership of it, it's just, it works and it's better.
Yeah.
And I want the teenagers to come in and take ownership of the clubhouse. And my job, I feel, is to listen and then do my best with enthusiasm and encouragement to make it happen for the teenagers in the clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wonderful model.
and even to the fact, like, I'm willing to. Someone asked me about gluten-free pizza.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make gluten-free pizza. I'll make vegetarian. I'll make whatever carnivore. Whatever it takes to help a teenager, I'll do it. I'll do it. What's going to go on there? It's just, we need to do it.
Well,
So
yeah, just like showing them how to cook a pizza.
yes,
Is there home ec in school anymore? I don't know.
no, there's not home ec, and
Oh,
also to Emily, the kids don't work
yeah.
because the way the economy seemed to go, and now with the jobs that you and I did,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're paying $23 an hour, so adults are really taking a lot of those jobs. So you don't
Yes.
see a lot. Now we have some really great family-owned Texas companies in our, community that
Mm-hmm.
hire a lot of kids. They hire a lot of high school kids, and they teach great values. They're good people. So I also too want to create spaces where maybe we could create some really great employees for them,
Yes.
and say, hey, I've got, Sally, or I got, Joe, man, he'd be really great. And also show the kids about, because you've shown up and you're really doing great, this is what a letter of recommendation is. This
Oh,
is what,
yes.
so showing how the world works networking wise too is very, very important.
Very.
So, and doing something, teaching the kids too, is that, because one thing I did notice in treatment, the kids knew it was costing their parents money,
Mm-hmm.
and they flexed that. Oh, you're here for the money. So the one thing that's important to me to keep this is that, no, I'm sorry, your parents, they may contribute to the nonprofit. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's not costing anything. The one thing that I love and to show is that doing something for somebody else with no strings attached,
Mm.
wanting nothing in return. I'm going to refer you to this person for this job. Well, what do you get? Absolutely zero. And I don't want anything. I want to see you succeed in life. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's that's the only reason why we're here.
It feels good to help others. It helps us to help others.
It does.
I
It
mean,
does.
what has, if any, reaction have you received from like local government or CPS, um, local medical facilities, treatment facilities? Have you gotten anywhere, any feedback from any of those type of entities yet?
Government, I haven't gotten any pushback yet. And I
That's
just
good.
met the chief of police in our town at the Rotary Club meeting, and they would love to sit down and do a roundtable. They've
Nice.
actually said we love to come and be a part of it. And if we can share what's going on out there, we would love to. So, um,
Very
there
cool.
are now police departments that have a mental health division.
Mm-hmm.
They're, you know, so there's a lot of people in the community, like law enforcement, that I have gotten no pushback,
Great.
because they want solutions too.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to? arrest a 17 or 16-year-old kid? Nobody. I mean, but obviously there's boundaries, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are boundaries and there are rules, and we all need to abide by them and live by them one
Mm-hmm.
way or another. But so government, as far as so far, I have a few people that I've gotten, now I'm going to the next level where this is becoming more of a reality. Um, Therapists love it
I
because
bet.
churches love it because we're a complementary piece to a lot of great things that other people are doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're going to be there 6 days a week. Sundays we're going to close because I really want a family day
Yeah.
myself and then refuel and whatever the families do on Sundays I think is important to have that day. But
Mm-hmm.
um, treatment centers, listen, I mean, we'll give them a better client and we'll be able to help their guest
Yeah.
and the family. Like, we create a much better relationship. I mean, especially if the parents are engaged in the clubhouse and the facility knows that they can, have a place where, on top of doing some other things, possibly, that
Mm-hmm.
they have this anchor in the community. So they're thrilled because, you know, aftercare is a huge issue for teenagers.
Yep.
There are things available, but they're not like a 6 day a week, open till midnight, you know, um, or 9 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
during
Mm-hmm.
the week. One thing too, especially Emily, 17-year-olds will have a special night, maybe like a Saturday night will stay open. Friday night will stay open for like the 17-year-olds. Because 17-year-olds are in a whole different ballpark, right?
Yeah.
So I think we'll have those age limits like for those late nights and stuff. But um gotten a lot of positive feedback.
I
And
bet.
I've drawn inspiration. Houston, Texas. Um, there's a Netflix, no, on Prime. It's called Generation Found.
Okay.
Um, they started in the late '60s, early '70s. The APG movement, alternative peer group.
Okay.
It's called, and they have a sober high school. Um, you know, and I've drawn a lot of inspiration from there. Um, but my spin on it is doing these fun, engaging. You have to have a hook.
Yes,
You have to have a hook.
you do.
And I guess people think I guess I'm crazy enough to do it, right? But that's where I want to spend my time. You know.
I love what you're doing, honestly. I'm so excited for you to like to see this. I'd love to come tour it someday.
Oh yes,
I commend you. I really, really do. I think that this would be a wonderful asset to any community. I
absolutely,
really do.
Emily. And it's going to be exciting because when you do come out, you know, we'll have a podcast studio, so we could do a
Yes.
podcast, and we could flip the script here, right?
Yes.
And but the other thing too, Emily, right? It's like you getting the chance to speak to teenage girls,
Mm,
opening that floor and sharing, all the things you've done in your life and where you've gone and inspiring.
mm-hmm.
Kids need inspiration, they need role models. Um, they need uh, they need to see how much fun and how much is available out there. It's
Mm-hmm. And they
it's
need to be heard.
they do.
Which I think
Mm,
that you bringing them in and talking to them and listening to them. Kids are smart, like they're creative. Uh, Kids have wonderful ideas. So
yes.
and it sounds like you're incorporating all of that. That's huge in itself.
Yes, the fun thing was too, like with the quiet room. asking that and getting that feedback, and, then saying, well, what if we did like engaged with the company like Moon Pods and
Mm-hmm.
put like Moon Pods in there and then did like essential oils, right? And really created this kind of like sanctuary, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, and I would have never thought of that if it wasn't for the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be great, right? The ownership would then be okay, design it. You
Yes.
guys design it, right? And I'll, there's nothing would be more powerful than sending a video to a corporation from the teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
because you could start, you know, sharing about what it, because a lot of kids today, yeah, they want to be like an influencer or they
Uh-huh.
want to explore that. So, why fight some of that stuff,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's a lot of like, I don't want to say everybody, never want to put the blanket, but a lot of people that have addiction, like, are great entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
You know
It's true.
that that's how they're wired.
Mm-hmm.
So, learning how to communicate, with the introvert, with the extrovert, with the kinesthetic, with the visual, with the auditory, all of those different ways, and and embracing all of it and letting the kids run with it.
Yes.
You
Do
know,
you think with like this kind of new Make America Healthy Again movement that there will be some room or emphasis on wellness, prevention, things like that?
absolutely. I want to make it so important to talk about gut health.
Mm.
Um, I'm on this crusade of microbiome, learning about it. I feel like it's not talked about in treatment enough
Yeah.
on the entry point and detox and like the first 30 days of treatment. If the most serotonin created in the body is in the stomach, if the gut is the second brain, and we're not paying attention to healing that immediately
Mm-hmm.
and start that as much as, you know, the medication we do for withdrawals,
Mm-hmm.
to start integrating, because that also shreds the
Yep.
microbiome in the stomach.
Yep.
So, the well's dry.
Yes.
How do we got to feed the well. So I would like to bring in, I mean, Andrew Huberman would be really fun to bring in, but
Mm-hmm.
engaging in the company, I'm a big advocate. I've been using Seed. It's a company, and they do make a child pre and probiotic
Okay.
as well. So I would love to talk about that. And interesting enough, with the pizza, a 72-hour fermented dough
Mm.
is good
Sounds
for
so
your
good.
stomach,
Mm-hmm.
right? The fermentation of dough and sourdough is actually, it's much, much
Very
easier.
good for your stomach.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think integrating, you know, there's a lot of, there's some farms out here and some things that we could do, some field trips we could do,
Mm-hmm.
um, integrating all of that. Yes. So thank you for asking about that,
Of
because
course. Yeah.
gut health and microbiome. Um,
Well, yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's I'm sure you've heard of the Florida Shuffle in addiction treatment. Bring them in, put them on meds, send them out. They're always gonna. It's like a revolving door. It's so incredibly important to focus on diet and gut health, and how we can naturally increase our serotonin instead of picking up a phone or taking, there is a place for prescription medications, but as a lot of those antidepressants or addiction medications really can really mess with your brain chemistry. So
Yes. My story doesn't have any meds.
It's wonderful.
You know, they really weren't offering a lot of them in 2005 either,
True.
right? So that, thank God for that.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful that vapes weren't out because I quit
Oh.
smoking when I had 5 months sober.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have went to a vape if I had that opportunity, but I,
Mm-hmm.
wanted everything out of my system. Um, I was very blessed because I was saying yes, just say yes. I have a few friends, we say that to one another all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I was really blessed with when I quit smoking with 5 months sober, I had hired this trainer in Scottsdale. And he was like, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. And I just kept saying yes, yes. Coconut oil, vitamins,
Mm-hmm.
supplements, a detox, um, and teaching me about, a few things. So, uh, my gut, and then I was doing even IV vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some of that for a while, to replenish, because things also do get lodged in your tissues and stuff like that, and it does
Yeah,
take time for things to come out,
it does.
But
Takes a long time.
yeah, so no, health and wellness is such a huge part of it. Um,
Good.
yeah,
I love that.
yes, you have
So
to advocate for yourself.
you do.
You really do, more so than ever.
Yes. And if
And
you can't advocate for yourself, you need somebody to advocate for you because there's
yes,
moments where you can't.
yes, yes,
But yes, I agree. And it's time that we do something different here than what we've been doing because what we've been doing is not working.
no,
So, and
no,
again, I think a lot of that was trying to focus on prevention.
yes,
It's just not the problem's getting worse. So,
yes, it is. And there, the narratives change.
mm-hmm.
It was crack. Then it was meth, right?
Yep.
And then it was opioids.
Uh-huh.
Cocaine in the eight. I mean, all these different things, and now it's fentanyl. We went away from opioids right into fentanyl. Um, and we're so distracted that
We are.
we forget what they did to this nation with all of the things that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And who would have ever thought that we'd have to be worried about marijuana?
I know.
Like whoever, you know what I mean? And fentanyl. I mean I follow a page. I don't on one of the social media platforms that highlights the fentanyl deaths and just watching those videos and they're kids. They're kids, like young kids.
Yes.
I'm sure that they're not expecting, a lot of them don't even know what they're taking. And that's the thing. Like, you don't, it is not like it used to be. It is not like it was in the 80s and 90s. And not that it was ever safe. But it has clearly gotten much worse, much scarier. And you don't know what you're getting anymore. It's just too scary to even,
Yes.
you know,
There used to be a code
mm-hmm,
if there was some bad stuff going around, or you had somewhat of a relationship. You know.
mm-hmm,
Now there's always been things that go sideways for years and years and years. I mean, the days of, if you start going back into the 70s, into the 80s with, PCP and angel dust, and they were, tainting
mm-hmm.
that and, making people go crazy and stuff like that. But, that's been, but there was somewhat of a code and a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That is all bets are off.
Yeah.
All bets are off
Yep.
now. There there's presses out there that they're making pills, fake pills, and you can't even tell the difference anymore. That's scary stuff, the
It's
counterfeit
very
stuff,
scary.
So you have to, that's, I guess, the conversations now that you are forced to have as a parent.
Yeah.
Not even an aspirin. Please don't take even an aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
from anybody, because the devastation of that, parents that have lost children to it, it's devastating. And the sad, like, you know a, a kid would take a fake pill and maybe has never done anything else in his life,
Mm-hmm.
and then oh, the stigma comes out around that, where, oh, he's an addict or whatever. And how naive, how, that's the sad thing. I can't,
Yeah.
breaks my heart. Parents are going through enough, and
Yep.
a life is lost. So
And I think too, and I've said this before, like I think that prescription drugs are also a gateway. We have become like the healthcare system has changed significantly over the years, and I mean it is just nothing but a business at this point, and we're not looking at patients as a whole. We're just looking at taking care of symptoms, not even curing symptoms or curing problems. It's just, well, how can I get rid of this symptom? How can I feel better? Well, here's a prescription, here's a pill. And so
yes,
it's like it's not as scary, I guess, anymore for kids to see like their pills are kind of, they're everywhere. They're in my house, they're in a prescription bottle, they're in a Tylenol bottle. Well, I watch my mom take them or my dad take them, and how bad can it be? Like I think that that's added to the problem.
yes, and the commercials.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember as a kid seeing a pharmaceutical commercial?
Not like I
I,
see him
I,
today.
I mean, maybe Band-Aids,
Right?
right?
Yeah, come to think of it honestly. Yeah, I don't think I did.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Bayer, like an aspirin or something
Yeah.
like that, or St. Joseph's children's aspirin or something, but never like these jingles and these things for everything. America is a drug culture,
Yeah.
right? And I mean,
And
you could go back into the early '60s,
yeah.
for that, but as we progress and things get worse, I mean, it's nonstop.
Well, and two, it's like you see these commercials now and they're giving you like they're telling you the list of side effects and we're
Yeah,
still just taking them.
yeah,
Like, why are we
yeah.
not? I don't know. I don't know what's happened and how we how we change it, I guess.
I think it's gonna, like anything else, like the revert, like if we start getting this reversal a little bit,
Mhm.
right? This kind of, things kind of gotta go anti,
Mhm.
right? Where the trend now becomes broccoli, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think as things can, get out there more,
Mhm.
perhaps it's going to take generations.
Yeah, it is. It's a
You
lot to
know,
undo. The system is going to need a 12-step program itself. Uh, you
yeah,
know.
that's going to be one heck of an intervention. I don't know if I'd sign up for that one.
Same. I know. Well, people ask me all the time. It's like, well, how do we change the system? Well, I mean, listen, I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but I don't think we do. I think we change the approach. We change our approach because there is too much money backing
Yes,
this.
yes,
These giant
yes,
corporations and we have to change our approach, which is what you're doing in the mental health and addiction
yes,
um, sphere, right? Like you're changing your approach. You're doing something different. It's a bit of a similar model, but man, it's you're changing the game with this one. I'm super excited to see this.
yeah. I'm
Really,
I'm I'm just so enthusiastic. It just feels so right,
yeah,
and the adventure and the journeys that we go on, right?
yeah,
And that's just part of the thrilling excitement about it all.
mm-hmm,
But you're right. It's you know if you focus in on changing a system, you never get anything done.
mm-hmm,
If you focus on a community, one teenager, right?
mm-hmm.
That's where you could get the work done. You know, and a lot of stuff, a lot of great things start at that local level.
Yes,
That local level is so important.
yep,
It's so important. The old, we don't have the uh, we used to call it, it takes a village, which was true, right? I
Yes.
mean, you ride your bike around and you said something, and the neighbor, because relatives live close and it got reported back, and that's kind of how the things. But we don't do that anymore, and I think that's another piece of life that I loved so much was my village
Yeah,
and the community. And you just don't have that as much
it's true.
anymore, right? Everybody shuts the garage door and that. Now, I live in a beautiful spot, where it's nice to see people walking around and sharing. There's a community spot. So, there's a lot of different groups that are available, so that's nice. But not everybody has that anymore,
It's true.
you know?
Well, we've also become so disconnected because a lot of that is the technology, our
Yeah.
phones, right? Like, we have it's like we're dissociating almost. We're seeing things online, we're swiping by fast, right? We're seeing things that if we were to see in real life, like some of the things you can see on social media, car accidents. I mean, there's a lot you can see out there. You would see that in real life. You would be traumatized.
Yes.
And as a community, you'd be rallying around to help that person. But we're so desensitized by it now because we're just seeing it over and over and over again on our phones. And I think it's disconnecting us from each other.
Yes.
So it's super important to bring back this community effort. It's we're in dire need.
We really are.
Yeah.
And I've gotten some of the pushback. I don't know. It's not pushback, but some of the questions I got. Well, this exists. This exists. There's this, and I said, well, I understand that, but nobody's making pizzas for teenagers at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And if the kid shows up high, you don't want to deal with it,
Yep.
right? So, this community that welcomes the problem to turn to the solution where, there's just pretty much, and we'll see things that, we can't imagine. And there's going to be things that go on, like, oh, there'll be, oh, could you believe this kid came here with, well, I'm glad it's
Yeah.
almost like at a 12-step meeting when someone shows up intoxicated.
Yeah.
Why is that so appalling to you?
Right.
I mean, that's why they, we do have that issue.
Right.
Thank
I mean,
God. It's a miracle to walk through the door.
yes.
So, that's what I always say, anybody who walks through that door, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Whether it's the clubhouse or 12-step meeting or whatever,
I
help
agree.
there is, it's a miracle. So we have to be able to foster the miracle. We got to be waiting, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
And embrace them.
absolutely.
Not turn them away. And there might be similar things that are happening to what you're doing, but you're doing it. You're putting a whole different spin on it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and the entities that exist now don't have you. So this is going to be a huge success. And like I said, I'm really super excited for you and for your community. I'd love to see something like this in every single town, or I guess, like you said, you can serve several counties.
Yes.
But man, I think it's going to change the game for it'll be very interesting to see the statistics in your area, the areas that you serve. It'll be interesting to see those over the years because I think you're going to make a big impact.
It will. It will be. We're in it. We're in it for the long haul, and we've been patient. Which has been very good. Something that I haven't always been good at. And so sustainability, is very, very important.
Yep.
And that's why it's taken us a little bit longer to launch, because we've got this opportunity where across the street where the square footage price is right, you could set it up right and sustain it and keep it very, very lean.
Do you have a time frame of when you might be up and running, or have like what your next phase might be and
The
time frame
next
of that?
phase is to sign the lease,
Okay.
and then from what I've looked, it's probably to open the end of the third quarter in 25.
Okay.
So that would be for the next school year,
Okay.
which would be wonderful.
And you'll be in what town? What
We're going to
area
be
again?
our first one will be in North Lake, Texas,
North Lake, Texas.
which is
Okay.
in the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And when you have it, when you've gotten to the opening phase, I would love to have you back on
Yes.
and share some more. And we'll definitely, I'm sure we can put on, Mark, is there stuff we can add into this episode? Like, kind of like we did for Lori's, yeah. Okay. Like all the information, any support groups, for people to access, we can include that in this episode.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any
And your
questions,
website address too.
yeah, it's just like the hat, just like the shirt.
Yep.
.org.
How you doing?
How you doing?
How you doing? I love it.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to touch on before we end?
No, I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to talk about this.
Yeah.
I really am. It's so important to me and my family, and I have gotten some, it's really, really neat when you get a donation from, I got a donation from somebody I went to high school with I haven't seen in 38 years.
Oh.
It's just very touching, where a lot of people know me from also a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So, it's really, really neat.
Can people or businesses donate to you?
Absolutely.
And if so, how do they do that?
So right on our website, howudoin.org, there's a donate button.
Okay.
Take you right there. You'll get a letter sent to your email right back with our tax ID number and your contribution amount. That's wonderful.
Okay.
Also, too, if a corporation listens and they want to maybe sponsor the podcast studio,
okay,
if they want to sponsor a product line, essential oils, moon pods, or they want to be in that pizza, bread baking, or they want to maybe sponsor a guest to come out.
Okay.
That's also another. But if a corporation wants to put their name on the podcast studio, let's do it.
That's nice. Okay.
So, that it's not always about just making a donation, financially, but sponsoring a product like that. I'd love to go, yeah. So,
wonderful.
Definitely.
Pizza ovens, yeah.
Pizza ovens are great. Yes, that's really,
tomato
really
sass.
Yes. So I'm going to be heading out to Las Vegas for the International Pizza Festival.
I'm jealous.
Third year I'm going, and the community's been awesome, and it's great, to update everybody on here's where we are now. And so I've had a lot of awesome, this is kind of fun. My Uncle Rocky had a pizza place in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. And my grandmother worked there, and I used to go there and hang out. My grandmother's still alive. She's 99.
Aww.
And for her 98th birthday, I brought her. I have a dear friend in Elizabeth, New Jersey, Al Santillo. And Al and I have become dear friends. And he made her fresh loaves of Italian bread and sauce, and I brought it to her. And I dipped it in the sauce, and I said, "Here, Nan." And she went like she remembered an old friend.
Aww.
Really sweet.
That's
really
so
sweet.
Cool.
So the pizza community, I don't know. I love pizza people. I love pizza. It's like salt of the earth. There's this grittiness and groundedness to it. And I feel like that's the foundation of the clubhouse. A little bit of grit, a smile, real, work with your hands, take pride in the product, take pride in yourself. Pride's a weird word, but, self-care,
Yeah.
maybe a better word, but so that's kind of those roots of what what I had and what I've seen. And pizzas also, the one thing I'll say is that even though booze was a connector, pizza was a thread of connection with a lot of people in my life that I love very dearly. And I have a couple of, like, 4 pizza places that kind of shaped my love for pizza, that are attached to incredible memories.
Yes.
So
Oh.
there's always that other side, right?
Yep.
There's always that other side. And once again, that to me is what recovery is all about. You take the resentment, you get rid of it, because it's the number one killer,
Yep.
and you flip it into gratitude.
Yes. Happiness is a choice.
Yes.
Happiness is a choice.